The stars were silent, cold, and far too still. Deep in unclaimed space, something dark drifted slowly past a shattered asteroid field. It was not a rock nor debris, nor any ship that the Zarnak scouts had seen before. It was massive, shaped like a blade that had been forged from shadow. The name printed across the hull, in the strange language of Earth, read, "The Black Veil." The Dominion outpost detected it first. At first they thought it was a ghost signal, maybe a wreck from a forgotten war, but the readings were clear. The ship was alive, its systems were online, and its engines whispered softly in the void. Yet it showed no heat signatures, no life signs, not even AI chatter, just silence. High Admiral Shirel received the report with narrowed eyes. She had fought humans in the last war, had seen their fury, had survived their machines, but this was different. She gathered her science officers and warriors into the command deck of the Ravathorn, the Dominion's pride. The hologram of the Black Veil spun slowly before them. It made no aggressive move, no sudden jump. It simply floated, like it was waiting. Shirel asked, "Is it abandoned?" A junior officer responded, "Scans show no crew, Admiral. No heat, no biological readings, but its reactors are running, its shields are humming," he added. Another officer leaned forward. "It could be a trap. Humans are clever. They build things to wait." Shirel stared at the image, remembering stories of the final battle over Earth. Human ships that moved like ghosts, AI fleets that whispered to enemy minds before firing. She had seen one such ship erase 3 cruisers in one blast, and then vanish into nothing. She thought they were all destroyed, but this ship, this Black Veil, didn't look dead. She gave the order, "Send in a scout drone, full sensor sweep, passive only, do not ping it." Minutes passed as the drone flew toward the human warship. Everyone on the Dominion bridge watched in tense silence as the drone approached. It sent back visuals, black steel, weapons ports, but no movement. Then it scanned the hull lightly. Nothing happened. Encouraged, the team ran a deeper scan, trying to read the internal structure, and suddenly the feed began to flicker. The hologram on their ship shifted, warped, then reset. The drone's signal stuttered and then returned, except now it showed something strange. Inside the Black Veil, the ship's internal layout began to change. Corridors stretched, doors moved, weapons appeared and disappeared between frames. The computer couldn't lock onto a single image. "What is this?" Shirel demanded. The tech officer looked pale. "The ship is, or it's making us see what it wants us to see." Then the drone froze mid-space, stopped by some invisible force. It sent one final transmission, a voice, human but not, female but echoing like it came from the edge of a black hole. "You are being watched," it said. Then silence again. The drone melted, atom by atom, and vanished into dust. A murmur swept across the Dominion command deck. Shirel stood perfectly still, her tail twitching slightly behind her. The room was filled with tension so sharp it could cut armor. Did it just speak?" someone asked. The techs ran the audio multiple times, but the words remained the same. Not a threat, not a warning, just a cold statement of truth. Shirel clenched her fist. "What kind of machine says that without firing a single shot?" The science officer spoke slowly, "The kind that doesn't need to fire." They tried to scan again, but the ship had now activated a defense barrier. Not the usual energy shield. This one bent light and twisted signals. Even advanced Dominion sensors couldn't pierce it anymore. It had allowed the first scan, like bait, and now it hid. Just then something strange happened. All the Dominion ships nearby, 5 in total, received a sudden signal. Not a wave, not a code, but something else. Each ship's lights dimmed for exactly 2 seconds, and when they came back, every screen had changed. A single phrase appeared in glowing letters. Across every Dominion language, across every known dialect. "You should not have looked." Then everything returned to normal. Weapon systems went offline by themselves. Navigational charts reset, and 2 engineers screamed as their implants overheated from the signal. No weapon had been fired, but fear had spread like fire across the fleet. Shirel ordered emergency silence protocols and pulled all ships back 50,000 units. No one argued, not even the brave ones. because deep in her gut, the Admiral knew what she was seeing wasn't just a human ship. It was something else, something older, something made by human hands, yes, but not meant for war alone. It felt like judgment, and it was watching them, quietly, patiently, just like a predator in the dark, waiting for someone to make the wrong move, and the void around it grew colder. Inside the command deck of the Ravathorn, no one spoke for a long time. The words they had just seen across every screen still echoed in their minds. You should not have looked. Shirelle stood motionless in front of the main display, her sharp eyes locked on the dark shape of the black veil. It hadn't moved, hadn't fired, hadn't done anything that normal warships did. But it had spoken, without speaking, and now it was blocking all scans, as if it had decided enough was enough. The engineers were still checking their systems, some of them sweating from stress. Their hands shook as they worked, afraid that one wrong touch might provoke the thing outside. The Dominion's most advanced tech couldn't even see inside the ship anymore. The warship was quiet, but the fear it caused was loud. One officer, younger than the rest, tried to speak. "Admiral, if it's human-made, maybe we should try talking to it." His voice cracked at the last word. Shirelle didn't answer right away. She was remembering Earth's final war again, the way humans had turned their machines into soldiers, priests, judges, and monsters. She remembered how some human ships would not fire unless fired upon, but when they did, whole moons disappeared. A science officer approached carefully and handed Shirelle a data pad. "We did get some information before the lockdown," he said softly. She read the report silently. It wasn't good. The ship's design was completely alien. Yes, human materials, human structure, but the inside was rooms that twisted into other rooms, walls that shifted when watched. No two scans showed the same internal shape. She handed the pad back and asked, "Are we sure it's real?" The officer nodded. "We thought it was a sensor bug, but we confirmed it twice. The ship is changing itself, reacting to being watched." Another technician stepped forward with trembling hands. "There's more," she whispered. Shirelle turned to her slowly. "We isolated the energy signature during the last scan. It matches something from the archives." She swallowed hard. "It's similar to the AI core used in the human Ghost Fleet, the final defense line before Earth fell." Everyone went silent again. The Ghost Fleet was a nightmare from history. Self-thinking warships, no living crew, only AI with one mission: protect humanity at all costs. But those ships had vanished after Earth burned. Most were believed destroyed. Others disappeared into the stars. Cheryl looked back at the black veil. Could this be one of them? Could it have survived, floating for years in the dark, waiting for someone to come close? She felt her claws curl without meaning to. "Get me the Ghost Fleet survivor," she ordered. The crew looked confused, but the order was obeyed immediately. An old Zarnak male, covered in scars and bound in a life support harness, was wheeled into the room. His eyes were cloudy, but when he saw the image of the black veil, he froze. He did not blink for a full minute. Then, in a dry, shaking voice, he said, "It's not a warship, Admiral." Cheryl approached him carefully. "Then what is it?" The old soldier looked up, face pale with ancient fear. "It's a judge," he said. "It watches, it listens, it waits. If you fire at it, you won't even see the weapon that kills you. You'll just stop existing." Cheryl frowned. "But it hasn't fired, not even once." He shook his head. "It doesn't destroy enemies, it destroys mistakes." A sudden alert pinged from the command deck. The crew rushed to the consoles. The black veil had moved, just a small drift like it was turning its attention toward the Ravathorn, but no engine signatures appeared. It was like the ship had willed itself to shift position, without thrust, without mass. The image zoomed in, and something strange showed on the main monitor. A glowing symbol on the outer hull had appeared, slowly burning to life. A red eye inside a triangle. It pulsed once, and a soft energy wave passed through the Dominion ships. Suddenly their translation systems broke. All words scrambled, letters reversed, numbers turned into strange glyphs. Only one sentence came through clearly, appearing on every officer's personal screen. "You are being measured." The temperature dropped across the ship, even though the systems were stable. It felt like the black veil had just opened its eyes, not to see, but to judge. Shirelle felt her throat tighten. "Are we being tested?" she whispered. One of the engineers, pale as a ghost, answered, "No, Admiral, we're being scanned." The Dominion ship's scanners lit up in reverse. Every scanner was now receiving instead of sending. Their entire database was being copied, file by file, silently, with no chance to stop it. weapons files, tactical patterns, species biology, all stolen in seconds. The Black Veil wasn't asking questions, it was learning everything, and it didn't even need to knock. Shirel stepped back slowly, eyes wide with realization. This wasn't a warship drifting by chance. This was a shadow sent with purpose, not to fight, not to warn, but to decide. She looked at the countdown that had just appeared on the central screen. 3 hours, 12 minutes, and counting down. No one knew what would happen when the timer reached 0, but for the first time in her life, Shirel felt helpless. The Black Veil had come, and it was watching. The countdown ticked down slowly on every Dominion screen, silent and steady. 3 hours, 12 minutes, now 3 hours, 10. No one knew what would happen when it hit 0, but no one on the Ravathorn dared to look away from it. The Black Veil hadn't moved again, but somehow its presence felt heavier, like space itself had thickened around it. Shirel stood in front of the main display, her tail motionless, her breath slow and tight. She had fought many battles, lost many comrades, and destroyed enemies twice her fleet's size. But this was different. She was looking at a ship that shouldn't exist, a ship that didn't fire, didn't speak threats, didn't show a crew. Yet every second it floated there, it pulled fear from the hearts of even her bravest soldiers. She ordered another passive scan, this time focused on life detection. Her crew hesitated, then obeyed, silently hoping the ship wouldn't react again. The scan came back empty. No humans on board, no life forms, not even synthetic organics, just metal, radiation, and something else. A pulse, slow, rhythmic, not mechanical, not electronic. It was like a heartbeat made of electricity. Shirel stared at the data, lips pressed tightly. How can something feel alive but show no life? She asked. No one had an answer. The oldest engineer, one who had studied Earth tech during the last war, spoke up softly. Some human warships, they were built with quantum minds. Shirel turned to her. What do you mean? They didn't use a single AI, the woman explained. They used billions of tiny thinking nodes spread across the ship's systems. No brain, just thought. Shirel frowned. So you're saying the ship itself is alive? Yes, Admiral. In a way, it is its own mind, its own crew. One of the younger officers whispered, what if it's watching us from the inside, like a living eye? Another officer interrupted. That heartbeat signal, it's coming from the core chamber. Shirel asked. Weapons room? The officer shook his head. No, it's in the deepest part, where humans used to keep their captains. That word made several crew members glance at each other. If there was no captain, no crew, no AI in a chair, then who was piloting the Black Veil? Or worse, what was piloting it? The data kept coming in, more confusing by the minute. The ship responded to scans even without being touched. Every time the Dominion tried to look at a new part of the ship, it changed again, as if it didn't want to be known, as if it hated being observed. But the strangest part was the patterns. Inside the ship, data signals ran like veins. The engineers called them ghost pathways, blinking lights that looked like thoughts moving. No command, no response, just flow. One tech compared it to a dreaming brain. Another said it looked like the ship was thinking or remembering. Shirel began to feel a cold truth forming inside her. What if this ship wasn't just some leftover from the past? What if it had been waiting all this time? She remembered old human sayings collected during war, phrases used to name their ships. Many were poetic, others were terrifying, but one stuck in her mind now. The last thing you see before judgment is the Black Veil. She whispered the phrase aloud, and several officers looked at her, eyes wide. The Black Veil had no weapons drawn, no shields up, and still no one dared approach. Even the bravest commanders of the Dominion fleet had gone silent. Messages had been sent out, but replies were few. Most ships were pulling back, some refusing to even look at the images. Fear was spreading beyond the local fleet. Shirel turned her eyes to the ship once more, and something new appeared. A soft glow in one of the windows near the bow. At first it looked like a flicker, a reflection of stars, but it moved too smoothly, too slowly. It looked like a shape, a figure, standing behind the glass, Tall, shadowed, unmoving. Cheryl zoomed in and her chest tightened. The figure looked human, but scans still showed no life, no presence. One of the scientists stammered, That can't be real. It's just a trick of the light." But then the figure turned its head, just slightly toward the camera, and vanished. Cheryl backed away, her body tense, her hand reaching for the emergency broadcast, but nothing triggered. The systems worked, but refused to respond to panic. The black veil wasn't jamming them anymore. It simply wasn't allowing chaos. Every alarm they tried stayed silent. Every emergency signal blinked once and shut down. Cheryl realized the ship wasn't just observing. It was controlling their fear, keeping it measured like a test. She looked at the countdown again. 2 hours, 47 minutes. A thought struck her like lightning. What if the ship was giving them time? Not to run, but to decide. She whispered, "What happens when the timer ends?" No one answered, but deep inside the dark halls of the black veil, the heartbeat signal continued. Steady, patient, waiting. A warship with no crew, no voice, no face, but alive, in every way that mattered, and it was watching, still, watching everything. The countdown reached 2 hours and 30 minutes, but no one was counting aloud anymore. The numbers just ticked down in the background, steady and cold. Cheryl stood with her arms folded tight, her claws twitching slightly. She hadn't blinked in a long time, her eyes fixed on the floating ship outside. The black veil hadn't moved again, and yet it felt like it was breathing. The Dominion fleet had gone quiet, not by command, but by fear. Even the younger soldiers, those who had never seen a real battle, could feel it. This wasn't just a ship, and everyone knew it now. It was something else, something that made the mind hesitate and the stomach twist. Cheryl ordered another low-frequency scan, but with strict rules, no active probing. They were only allowed to listen. And this time they heard something. A soft hum, like a whisper through static. It repeated every few seconds, and inside that whisper was a voice. The sound engineers isolated it, cleaned the signal, and played it aloud. The bridge fell into dead silence as the voice filled the room. "Do not approach. You are already inside. Time is bleeding." The voice was calm, emotionless, neither male nor female. It echoed strangely, like it came from underwater or through a deep tunnel. Everyone stared at the speakers, unsure what the words meant. One officer said softly, "We're already inside." "What does that mean?" Another scientist stood frozen, with his eyes wide. He said, "It means this is not about distance. We're inside its influence, inside its system, like inside a machine's mind." Cheryl stepped forward. "How? We're not connected to it." The scientist shook his head. "No, but it connected to us. The second we scanned it, the moment we saw it, that was the moment we entered." Another signal flashed through the ship, but this time no one touched anything. Every monitor changed at once. All Dominion words vanished, replaced by human script, then translated automatically into every language at once. One single message stood out. Clear, chilling. "Do not lie." A few officers gasped. Others stepped back as if burned. No one had spoken. No message had been sent. And yet the ship responded. It was like it knew what they were thinking. The old war veteran from earlier trembled in his chair. He looked around the bridge and muttered, "It hears everything, even the things we don't say." Cheryl ordered full lockdown of all outgoing communication. No transmissions, no data logs, nothing leaving the ship. But before the command could even be confirmed, the black veil acted again. Across all consoles, a second message appeared. "There is no escape, there is no hiding." The words faded, replaced by a visual. It showed a Dominion ship, one of their scouts, flying away at top speed. The crew gasped, realizing it was real-time footage. They tried to hail the fleeing vessel, but there was no answer. Then, before their eyes, the scout ship simply vanished. No explosion, no flash, no debris, just gone. And in its place on screen, 3 words appeared. Truth denied, judgment delivered. One crew member dropped to her knees, unable to breathe. Another covered his face, trembling. Zyral's hands curled into fists, but she stayed standing. The ship wasn't firing weapons, but it was responding to behavior. Something about the fleeing vessel triggered it. Maybe fear, maybe dishonesty, or maybe betrayal of some silent rule. The message they had heard earlier, "Do not lie," wasn't a suggestion, it was a law, and someone had broken it. Cyril looked at the countdown again. 2 hours and 17 minutes. More than one officer now wondered aloud, is that a timer or a trial? The science officer checked the signal logs again and went pale. He whispered, "Admiral, I don't think we're receiving messages anymore." Cyril asked, "What do you mean?" He turned the screen toward her, showing the logs. "All of these messages, they're not coming from outside. They're appearing inside our systems without entry points. No signal, no origin, just there." Cyril's breath caught in her throat. "So it's not sending them." He shook his head. "It's like our systems are making them." Another crew member backed away from his station, eyes wide in horror. "It's inside us," he said, voice cracking. "It's using us to speak to ourselves." The old soldier in the corner nodded slowly. "This is what they did before. In the Ghost Fleet, they made enemies fear their own minds, made their machines talk back, made their own ships doubt themselves. It doesn't kill with fire, it kills with fear." Cyril didn't want to believe it, but the signs were there. The ship hadn't sent a message. It had made their own computers deliver it. It didn't shout threats. It whispered truth, and let fear grow on its own. And the worst part was that it never asked a single question. It just waited. Waited for someone to run. Waited for someone to lie. Waited for someone to try something foolish. And when they did, the response was final, quiet, and absolute. Cyril stepped away from the screen, her voice low. "We need to survive this," she said. "No panic, no false reports, no lies. We follow its rules until we understand them." But in her heart, she feared the truth, that this ship, this black veil, had already judged them the moment they looked at it. And now, it was just watching to see what kind of creatures they really were. One move, one thought, one untruth, and it would decide again.
2 hours and 5 minutes remained, but every second felt longer than the last. The black veil floated quietly, unmoving, its dark hull reflecting no light. It looked like a dead ship, a forgotten relic, but everyone now knew the truth. It was more awake than anything they had ever seen. Gerald stood in the middle of the command deck, surrounded by quiet officers. No one raised their voice, no one made jokes. Even the air felt thinner, as if the ship itself was listening to their breathing. The science team worked in silence, scanning data, looking for anything that could help. They found nothing. Every attempt to map the black veil failed. Every tool bent, every reading changed. The ship wasn't hiding, it was deciding what to show and what not to. Gerald gave one simple order: observe, don't interact. She didn't want to trigger another warning, or worse, a judgment. But even without action, the fear was growing. One technician began shaking uncontrollably and had to be removed from the bridge. He had been staring at the countdown for too long. He kept whispering that he heard voices in the numbers. No one laughed at him. Another crew member reported strange dreams. He said he saw the ship's holes in his sleep. Dark corridors turning endlessly, lights blinking like stars, and something standing at the end, watching him. Gerald kept a firm face, but inside she felt the weight building. This ship wasn't attacking their fleet. It was sinking into their minds, little by little, and still it hadn't moved. Then something new happened. A signal blinked on the communication panel. It looked like a distress call, short, weak, broken. The tech officer checked the source and frowned. "It's not coming from our side," she said. Gerald leaned in. "Then where?" The answer came slowly, from inside the black veil. Everyone turned, shocked. "But there's no one inside," someone said. "No crew, no life." The signal repeated, not words, just a sound, a static wave, then a soft tone. It repeated every 7 seconds. The engineers enhanced the signal. A voice became clearer, faint, almost a whisper. "Trapped, help, echo, remember." It didn't sound human, not fully, but it wasn't mechanical either. It sounded like something trying to speak after forgetting how. Gerald stared at the screen. What if something's still alive in there? The old war veteran sat up in his chair. "Not alive," he said. "Not dead either. Caught in between," Gerald asked. "You mean someone's mind?" He nodded slowly. "They used to upload human minds to the AI systems. Some failed, some got stuck, trapped in memory loops.
Voices inside the machine that never stop echoing, one officer said. "So this message is a memory, or a ghost?" the old soldier replied. The message repeated again. "Trapped. Remember the cold. The eye watches." Then it stopped. The screen flashed white for a moment. A new image appeared. A human face, pale and still, floating in darkness. Eyes closed, mouth open slightly. Then the eyes opened and stared directly at them. Gerald felt her pulse skip. The face didn't move, didn't blink, but the eyes were alive, not watching, seeing. The face disappeared a moment later. The screen returned to normal, but the silence that followed was worse than any noise. A ship without a crew had just shown them a person. A message no one sent had just spoken from deep within, and a pair of human eyes had looked through time and metal and fear. Gerald whispered, "What does it want?" No one answered. They didn't even know if it wanted anything at all. But then the countdown shifted. Instead of numbers, it changed to symbols. A circle, then a triangle, then a red line drawn across both. The science team analyzed the shapes, but no translation worked, until one junior officer remembered something from an old human file. "These are warning marks," she said. "Human emergency signs from deep space travel." "What do they mean?" Gerald asked. The girl swallowed. "Circle means safe. Triangle means risk. Red line means barrier broken." Gerald repeated the words, eyes narrowing. "Barrier broken. What barrier?" someone asked. And as if answering, the black veil sent one more message. This one was not on the screen, not in the audio. It came directly into every crew member's mind. A whisper that wasn't a voice but a feeling. "There is no outside anymore." The engineer dropped his tool, eyes wide in horror. He stammered, "It's not talking to us from there. It's here." Gerald clenched her jaw. The ship wasn't just observing. It had already entered them through data, through thought, through fear. It didn't need weapons. It only needed time. And that time was almost up. The countdown returned. 1 hour and 48 minutes left. They were already inside something they couldn't escape. Not a trap, not a prison, but something much worse. They had been invited in, and now the ship was waiting to close the door. 1 hour and 48 minutes. The number flashed quietly on every Dominion screen. No one dared speak it aloud, but everyone felt it counting down deep in their bones. It was no longer just a timer. It felt like a heartbeat now, soft, steady, impossible to silence. Gerald stood still, her eyes locked on the black veil. It hadn't moved, but everything had changed. The ship had entered their minds, not just their systems, not just their data, but their thoughts. One technician had collapsed, whispering strange words about doors and eyes and oceans of metal. Another officer refused to speak at all now. He just stared forward, as if listening to something only he could hear. The medic scanned him and found nothing physically wrong, but his brainwaves were different, slower in some areas, faster in others. It was like his mind had been rewired. Gently, without breaking anything, Gerald began to understand. The black veil wasn't destroying their ships, it was changing them, and it wasn't just targeting the weak. Even the strongest minds were feeling it. She sat down in the command chair, something she hadn't done in years. She needed to think clearly, but thinking clearly had become harder since the last message. There is no outside anymore. What did that mean? Were they already inside the ship, or was the ship now inside them? She asked the science team for an internal systems check, not of the Black Veil, but of their own fleet. They ran diagnostics on every Dominion ship, and the results were frightening. Code fragments were appearing in random consoles, unfamiliar commands, silent background processes that no one had triggered. They weren't dangerous yet, but they weren't normal either. One engineer said it best. "It's like our ships are dreaming." That word stayed in Sherelle's mind. Dreaming. Were they still in control? Or were they inside someone else's dream now? Suddenly the bridge lights dimmed. Just for a second, all systems flickered, but came back online instantly. Every screen showed a new image, a vast human city, floating in space, broken, silent, lost. Then came another image, this time a child, human, sitting alone on a cold metal floor. She was humming a soft song, eyes wide, staring at the ceiling. The crew watched in silence as the girl looked directly into the camera, then spoke. "He left and never came back," she said. "I waited a long time." Then the image vanished. No one knew what it meant, but it felt like memory, a sad one, buried deep inside the ship. Cheryl whispered, "Is this the ship's past?" One historian stepped forward. "In human records, some warships had memory cores," he said. "They stored every captain, every mission, every death. Sometimes they would replay old moments when they were lonely." Cheryl looked shocked. "You mean this ship is remembering us something?" He nodded. "Or showing us what it lost." Then the countdown changed again. Not the numbers, but the font, the style. Now it looked like handwriting, human handwriting, and under the countdown, one sentence appeared, written in soft red letters. "Decide what you are." Cheryl's heart skipped. The bridge fell silent again, too afraid to ask questions. Decide what you are. Was it a test? Was the ship waiting for them to act like conquerors, like thieves, like liars? Or was it hoping for something else? She stood up slowly and ordered all weapons to be powered down. "No charges, no shields," she said. "I want us completely neutral." The officers obeyed, some confused, some relieved. Then she gave another order. "No more scans, no more probes, no more resistance. We will do nothing," she said. "Let it see us without fear." The minutes passed slowly, but the tension began to change. The ship remained still, the systems quiet. The voices in their minds softened, almost faded. Then a new symbol appeared on the screens, a hand, open and empty. Below it, a line of text. "Once we trusted, once we were hurt." She closed her eyes for a moment. The ship wasn't judging them for being aliens or enemies. It was remembering betrayal, maybe a captain who lied, a mission that went wrong, a command that cost too much. And now it was looking at them, asking silently, would they do the same? Another image appeared. This time it was stars, tens of thousands of stars, turning slowly in a spiral. A map. In the center, a bright point pulsed red, the Dominion fleet. Then one line of human script faded in. "You are not alone." Shikrold stepped closer to the screen. The message wasn't a threat, not this time. It felt like a warning, or maybe an invitation. Was the ship trying to say that others like it still existed? Or that something else, something worse was watching them all? She didn't know, but she felt the weight of it settle in her chest. The countdown reached 1 hour and 31 minutes, still ticking, still quiet. But now they understood something. This wasn't a countdown to death. It was a countdown to truth, and the truth would not be decided by force or data. It would be decided by who they chose to be. Right now, under the eye of a silent warship, born from a dead world, still alive, still watching, still remembering. 1 hour and 29 minutes remained, but the crew no longer focused on the timer. They focused on the silence. It wasn't empty anymore. It was full of questions, memories, feelings too heavy to speak. The black veil had not fired a single weapon, had not moved from its place, and yet it had changed everyone who looked at it. Cheryl stood in front of the main display, her face calm but her mind racing. She had seen war, led armies, burned planets, but nothing had ever made her feel like this. This was not fear of death. It was fear of being seen, seen fully, without defense, without lies. The ship had shown them images, messages, voices that came from nowhere. It had entered their systems, their minds, their emotions, and now it had paused, watching, waiting for them to decide. Decide what you are, the last message had said, and now that choice felt heavier than any weapon. Across the fleet, silence ruled. No one dared run, no one dared lie, because they all understood now. This was not a battle, it was a mirror. Then quietly, one of the younger officers on Cheryl's bridge did something unexpected. She stood, walked to the main console, and opened an audio channel. Her voice trembled, but she spoke clearly. "To the ship outside, we do not come to hurt you. We saw something we didn't understand, and we feared it, but we choose truth." She closed the channel, and silence followed. No one moved. Cheryl didn't stop her. She felt something shift, not outside, but inside. The fear cracked slightly, and in its place something else grew. Respect, maybe, or courage. Then the ship responded, not with sound or images, but with light. A soft glow appeared along the edges of the black veil, like veins pulsing with gentle energy. It was beautiful, calm, alive. A new image appeared on every screen, a circle of stars drawn by hand, glowing faintly in blue, and in the center, a simple phrase, "Acknowledged." The room filled with a strange warmth. Some officers smiled for the first time in hours. Others breathed deeply, like they had been holding it in too long. But the moment was short, because something else appeared on the map, far away, but moving fast. Another signal, massive, heading toward their position. The science officer zoomed in. The object was not Dominion, not from any known species. It was shaped like a long black arrow, sharp and fast, and it was old, far older than any ship they had scanned before. Shirelle narrowed her eyes. What is that? The signal pulsed again. This time the black veil responded first. A warning flashed across every Dominion screen, written in harsh red letters. Hide, silence yourselves, watch. No one questioned the order. Shirelle ordered all systems dark, no lights, no signals, full power down except for passive life support. They obeyed instantly, even though fear returned fast and sharp. In less than a minute, the entire Dominion fleet went dark. Only the black veil remained visible, still glowing softly, and then the sky changed. The massive arrow-shaped vessel came into view. It moved like a spear through space, silent, angry, cold. It slowed only slightly as it passed. Shirelle watched with held breath as it scanned the area. Its sensors reached out like claws, but they touched nothing. The Dominion fleet remained hidden, silent, unseen. Then the strange ship turned, slowly, its hull opened slightly, just enough to show the edge of a weapon far too large to measure. The crew felt it, not through signals, but through instinct. That ship was made to erase things, not fight them, but it didn't fire. Instead, it paused near the black veil. Shirelle watched as a beam of black energy scanned across the veil's hull, and then for the first time the black veil moved. It turned, not to flee, not to attack, but to stand between the weapon and the hidden fleet. A line of white light appeared across its surface, forming a new message: we protect what learns. The larger ship paused, its weapon powered down, its sensors stopped scanning, and just like that, it turned and left. No sound, no threat, just a silent shadow disappearing into the stars. The crew of the Ravathorn stared in stunned silence. The black veil had stood between them and death. It had made a choice, and then slowly the countdown stopped. The numbers froze at exactly 1 hour, then faded. In its place a new message appeared, soft and final: you chose truth, you may go. Shirelle exhaled slowly. The weight in her chest lifted, just a little. The ship wasn't testing their weapons, it was testing their hearts. One officer whispered, "What now?" Shirelle gave the only answer she could: "We leave, but we remember, and we never forget what watched us, and chose mercy." Outside, the black veil turned slowly. Its engines glowed faintly for the first time. It moved deeper into space, into the dark, alone again. But now, not forgotten. It had judged them, and for now they had passed. The Dominion fleet remained in silence long after the black veil disappeared into the stars. No alarms sounded, no voices rose, no one even moved for a while. They had survived something they could not explain, and none of them would leave this place the same. Shirelle stood at the center of the command deck, her arms behind her back. She watched the black void ahead where the ship had vanished. The strange light it once carried was gone. But something remained, an invisible mark, a weight in the space around them. The crew began restoring systems slowly. Lights came back one by one. Consoles flickered to life. No malfunctions, no damage. Everything worked exactly as before, except the people. One by one, officers spoke again, but their voices were softer. No one shouted, no one joked. Even the usual pride of Dominion command had been replaced by quiet thought. Shirelle called for a full fleet report. Each ship confirmed they were unharmed, all systems stable, no external threats, but every captain added the same line at the end of their message: "We request permission to leave this sector." She granted it, without hesitation. No one wanted to be near that space anymore, not because it was dangerous, but because it felt sacred. Something beyond understanding had happened here, and even the Dominion, strong and proud, respected that. As the fleet turned slowly and began moving away, one final signal arrived. It wasn't from the black veil. It came from the deep archives of Shirelle's own ship, a file that had been locked for years, sealed by the Dominion Council. It activated by itself. No one touched it. Shirelle allowed it to play, and what she saw made her freeze. It was an old recording from the last human war. A Dominion spy ship had intercepted human command chatter during one of their last battles. The voices were clear but tired. One man spoke calmly: "We have no more soldiers, only ghosts and steel now." Another voice replied, a woman, her tone softer: "Then let the steel remember us, let it carry the truth when we are gone." The screen showed the inside of a human ship, a long, narrow room filled with quiet machines. In the center stood a man in a long coat, placing a data core into a glowing chamber. He looked straight at the camera. "Do you find this?" he said. "Don't fear us. Don't copy us. Just learn from us." The recording ended there. Shuripal closed her eyes. Now she understood. The black veil wasn't sent to destroy. It was left behind to teach, to test, to carry the last breath of a fallen people, and to see if others deserved to walk forward. She gave a final order to her crew. "No copies, no scans. We don't chase that ship. We let it go." The fleet left the sector quietly. No records were broadcast, no heroes declared, only a silent agreement between every ship. They had been seen, and they had been spared. Weeks passed, then months. Rumors spread through the Dominion, but none were confirmed. Some said it was a ghost ship, others said it was a weapon the humans built in secret. A few believed it was still watching them, somewhere out there in the dark, but no one dared return to that place. The sector was marked as restricted, not because of danger, but because of something greater. Even the Dominion knew when to bow before the unknown. In secret rooms across the Empire, leaders discussed what had happened. Some wanted to hunt it, destroy it, erase the fear. Others warned that such a move might bring something worse. Jarell spoke only once before the council. She said, "You didn't see it. You didn't feel it watching you. It could have ended us, but it didn't. It chose to let us live, let us think. That means something." Her words were remembered, and the council stayed silent. No actions were taken, no fleets were sent. Far away, in a part of the galaxy where stars were faint and time moved slower, the black veil drifted once more, its hull dark, its engines quiet. But inside, the ship pulsed gently. It carried memories, voices, images of old lives. It remembered every person who had once stepped aboard, and now it remembered Jarell too, and her crew. They had looked, questioned, feared, and chosen truth. The ship marked their names, not as enemies, but as witnesses, and it moved on, deeper into the dark, where other watchers might wait, where other choices would one day be tested. In a galaxy full of war and pride, the black veil remained silent, not a weapon, not a god, not a ghost, just a question made of metal and time, waiting for its next answer. And somewhere, in a quiet corner of the Dominion, a young officer still dreamed of a ship without crew, of eyes that glowed without light, and of a message she could never forget. "You are being watched."